and worship your holy name, God. God, we thank you for loving us and for your mercy, God, and for your grace. Today, God, we thank you for healing us, for mending our broken hearts and sickness. God, we put all of our faith in you. God, we ask that you would be in this service. You know the hearts of those that are here. God, there's broken hearts and hurt, heartache, sickness, pain. It's all here, God. We just ask you to take it away. We lay it all at your feet this morning. God, let everything we do and say be to uplift and glorify your name. Let us always do your will in our lives and in this community. God, we ask all these things in your holy name. Amen. You may be seated.
Good morning. I'd like to welcome you guys to Destination Community Church. If you're here right now, it means that you don't have the flu. We hope if you do have the flu, exit this building right now. All right, strep throat, anything like that. In fact, my daughter was running a youngest daughter. The other one's already had it, running a fever this morning. And last night. So she's sick. It's going around. We are in the second part of a series called Now What? And I'll talk about that a little bit more here in just a second. But we all have the perception of what life is supposed to look like. And this differs for all of us. Parent of four is the view, God bless your soul, but parent of four. Successful business owner, proud homeowner, happily married, college graduate. The list goes on and on and on. But there are people that are in here right now that are saying it was not supposed to be this way. My life was not supposed to be this way. Even if you feel like you've achieved success or had the kids or finished college, whatever that might look like, life was never supposed to be this way. The divorce, the diagnosis, the job loss, the GPA drop, the flight into poverty. So as we open up, or as we go into the second part of this series, Now What? We are discussing what to do when life doesn't turn out the way that we feel it should have. For some of you, you're in your teens or your 20s and you're really early on. For others of you, you may be in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and you're asking these questions and you're saying, life was not supposed to be this way. Now, I don't have a magic bag of tricks that I'm going to offer you this morning. I'm not going to recommend a special pill or a purchase or an exercise or anything like that I feel is going to be the remedy for what's going on in your life. But there is a way, and there is only one way that life can make sense, and it's called faith. Specifically, faith in Jesus. And we're going to get in a little while to a little bit more of what that means, but I have a theory. And I want you to pay really, really close attention to this. I have a theory. When most people use the word faith and they say that they practice faith, they have no idea the complexity and the cost that is involved with what they are talking about. Faith is not a tweet, or a bumper sticker ethic. It is a way of life. So I'm going to say that again. When most people use the word faith, and they say in their lives that they practice faith, they have no idea the complexity and the cost involved with what they're talking about. I'm going to say it one more time. When most people use the word faith, as they regularly do, and tell other people that they are walking in faith or living a life of faith, they have no idea the complexity and the cost that is involved with what they're talking about. 3 questions that we must ask in regards to genuine faith. The first is this: are we willing to go where we might not want to go if we're really talking about faith? Because the majority of the people will say, well, I would do anything for my spiritual life. I would do anything God asked me to do. But at the end of the day, the reality is that they're not willing to change. They're not willing to step out. They're not willing to really make sacrifices. So are you willing to go in your life places that you might not want to go? Number 2, are you willing to do what you might not want to do? Are you willing to quit that job? Are you willing to end that relationship? Are you willing to make that drastic change in your life? The majority of people are simply not going to do this, though they will talk about faith. And maybe the most important question of the 3, are you willing to accept that life might turn out different than what you'd hoped? By this age, I was definitely going to have a 6 or 7 figure income. By this stage of life, I was going to have certain things figured out. All of a sudden, the doctor has told me I have this life-changing thing, and I have no idea what to do about that. Usually the first thing that we do is we start to blame God in these scenarios. So if you can't answer these 3 questions with a resounding yes, like sign me up, I'm ready to go. Today I'm going to sell and give up everything that I have. I'm going to go geographically maybe wherever God wants me to go. I'm going to accept that I wanted to be a musician, I wanted to be an artist, I wanted to be a business person, I wanted to do all these things, but now I'm called to give these things up. I'm willing to do that today. If you can't answer those questions with a resounding yes, then you're either super early in your faith, you're wrestling with your faith, or you have no faith at all. You're going to fall into one of these places. Welcome to church. Good morning. I'd like this morning to tell you about a man named Abraham, and we're also going to call him Abram. So it's the same guy, but these names are going to be used interchangeably. And I don't think that you're going to forget this story anytime soon. So I want you to turn to Genesis if you have your Bible. Genesis chapter 12, we're going to look at verses 1 through 8. So while you're turning there, I'm actually going to give you another verse first that's really going to set the context for what we're looking at. This verse is Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 8. So as you guys are turning to Genesis, this is the first verse that I want to share with you. And this is what it says. By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place that he was going to receive an inheritance. Notice it says by faith. It does not say by his good looks. It does not say by his personality or his personal talents. It does not say by his charisma or dedication or discipline or personal strengths. It says, by faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place that he was going to receive an inheritance. This is the second part of the verse. He went out without knowing where he was going. So as he steps out in faith, he has no idea whatsoever what is around the corner. So this is actually what faith looks like. So to take this verse and to go much, much deeper in the context of this chapter, we're going to look at Genesis chapter 12 and verses 1 through 8. All right, so here's our primary text for today. So the Lord said to Abram, his name is first going to be Abram. It's eventually going to be changed to Abraham. The Lord said to Abram, leave, other translations are going to say go, leave your land, your family, and your father's household for the land that I will show you. Leave everything that you know. I will make of you a great nation and will bless you. I will make your name respected, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you. Those who curse you, I will curse. And all the families of the earth will be blessed because of you, because of your obedience. Abraham left just as the Lord told him, and Lot went with him. Now, Abram was 75 years old. So if you think that your time's up and you've not achieved what you need to achieve yet, Abram is 75 years old when he left Haran. Abram took his wife Sarai, who's eventually going to be named Sarah, his nephew Lot, all of their possessions, and all those who became members of their household in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan. When they arrived in Canaan, Abram traveled through the land as far as the sacred place of Shechem at the oak of Moreh. The Canaanites lived in the land at that time. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, I give this land to your descendants. So you've arrived. So Abram built an altar there to the Lord who appeared to him. From there he traveled toward the mountains east of Bethlehem and pitched his tent with Bethlehem on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and worshiped in the Lord's name. So one thing that we must understand about faith is that it is always going to call us out. It is always going to show us what we are made of. It's going to reveal what we really believe. Because it's easy to attend a church, or maybe even not attend a church, just to live in a Bible Belt culture like our region and say, well, of course I have faith. Well, of course I believe in God. Well, of course I believe in Jesus. But whenever the rubber actually hits the road, whenever real decisions have to be made in our lives, when the Spirit pushes us in a certain direction, if you experience the Spirit on a regular basis, we come to understand what we are actually made of and if we are actually using an activated faith in our lives. So the nation of Israel is established by one man's decision to act in faith. So Abraham gives us two very practical lessons that I want you to understand today. Because many of you are in this situation that I just mentioned. You are saying, now what? My job is about to end. I don't know what's going on in my life. Our finances are very uncertain. I am having extreme difficulty with one of the kids. It looks like we've had this successful business for a period of time, and now I feel like God may be telling me to give it up. Whatever it may look like in your life, there are two lessons that we have today. And the first one is this. Abraham answers this question, now what, with now go. Now go. And we're going to talk about the implications of what it means to go in our lives. Verse 4 tells us Abraham left just as the Lord had told him. He did not have a moment where he had to sit around and really think about the consequences of what that was going to look like. He went whenever he was told. So what is it that he is actually leaving? Keep in mind, so you're thinking, well, Abraham was wise. Abraham was smart. Abraham knew all these things. But he didn't understand my life. He didn't necessarily have to sacrifice the way that I would have to sacrifice. He would not necessarily have to leave all of his livelihood. He would not necessarily have to make this huge career change. He would not necessarily have to step out in which all of these people in his life are asking these questions. Abraham didn't have it exactly how I had it. So what is it that he's leaving? He is leaving his land. That's what the passage told us. He is leaving his land. He is leaving his family, and he is leaving his father's household. So what he is actually leaving is his ownership, his comfort, and his identity. This is everything. This is everything that he has, and this is everything that you have. Your sense of ownership, your belongings, your stuff, you are being told to leave. The sense of comfort that you have, what takes you away from a deep relationship with God. If it's your money, if it's binging on Netflix or going straight to your phone so that you can get the dopamine going in your mind and ease everything, it's your sense of comfort. For some people, it's food. For some people, it's sex. For some people, it's codependency on someone else. Whatever that looks like, he is saying, you lived here your whole life. Now I'm telling you that you must leave your comfort. But you know what else he has to leave? His father's household. You know what that means in ancient Jewish culture? He is leaving his identity. People have always known me as the businessman. People have always known me as the town politician. People have always known me as the addict. People have always known me as whatever that might look like. What do you have to leave, Abraham? You have to leave everything. You have to go. You have to step out of that old person. So whenever you're asking, now what is it that I do next? Everything is crumbling. God is telling you that you must go. So have you ever really, truly left your sense of ownership, your sense of comfort, and your sense of personal identity? And this is key right here. Abraham isn't just told to go. Get this. He is also told as he goes that he has to leave something behind. So whenever you are told in your life that you must go, and in one way or another, every single person in here right now that is a follower of Jesus is being told to go, it will always involve leaving something that you care about behind. I'd like to repeat this again. When most people use the word faith, and they say that they practice faith, they have no idea until you've been in the darkness, the complexity and the cost that's involved with what they're talking about. No idea whatsoever. Because it's an easy word to use on social media. It's an easy word to use among your church friends. It's an easy word to use in the culture that we live in when most people still identify as Christian. It's a really easy word to use. It's an easy word to use if you're part of a small group and you serve at your church and you try to be as involved as you can. But again, when most people use the word faith and they say that they practice faith, they have no idea the complexity and the cost and what is going to be taken from them. But on the other side, something wonderful given in return. So Abraham is told to go. Our translation said leave. But Abraham is told to go, which literally means, you know what it literally means in Hebrew? Get out. Get out of that toxic relationship. Get out of that bad situation. Get out of that job that is going nowhere, even though you're making a lot of money and you're lining your pockets. This is not what you were made for. Go, get out, leave now. And he is obedient. He is told to go to a land that he's never seen before. He's not told to go from Johnson County to Floyd County. Right? He's told to go to a land that he has never seen before. And that if he does this, if he makes this ultimate sacrifice, he will be blessed. So truth number 2 for this series. Last week, Pastor Lee shared that truth number 1 was embrace the trial. Truth number 2 for this series, embrace the unknown. Nothing is going to change your life like embracing the unknown. And I don't care if you're you're climbing the corporate ladder, and you're almost to that place where you're ready for retirement. You're almost there to be able to enjoy the rest of your life the way that you had been planning since you were in your early 20s. God is calling you out to embrace the unknown, because this is what it means to actually practice faith. Go means trust. And I'm going to make you a promise. I'm going to make you a promise right now. In one way or another, every person in here right now is being told to go. Now, it may not be like my situation or Abraham's situation, where it's a geographical go. It may be something locally in your life right now in which you are being told to go. Your go is not my go. All right, my go is not your go. It looks different. But the question that you have to answer in your life, will I stay on the familiar land? Will I stay in my Father's household? Will I keep all of the things that bring me a tremendous amount of comfort and understanding, or will I go with God? You see, Abraham actually takes go to the complete extreme in his situation. Later in this chapter, and we're not going to get into it, later in chapter 12, we see that Lot, his nephew, because of all of the livestock that he brings with him and all of the livestock that Abraham brings with him, there is simply not room. Their shepherds start to quarrel and argue because there simply isn't room for both of them. So Abram, which will become Abraham, makes a pretty good offer. And what he says is, you take all of this land over here, and I'll take all of this land over here. But you know what? Let's sweeten the pot if you don't like that. I'll take all the land over here, and you take all the land over here. You can have it your way. Lot chose the land that looked good, while Abraham chose the God that is good. And this was a huge difference in the outcome. Lot chooses the bright lights of Sodom and Gomorrah. And for those of you that know enough about the Bible, or maybe you don't know anything about the Bible, but you've heard the phrase, the expression of the city, Sodom and Gomorrah before, it's not good. And Abraham says, I am going to go with God regardless of where it takes me. How many of you in your lives that call yourself people of faith have actually stepped out? And when I say stepped out, I'm talking about very little security. Stepped out into an unfamiliar land and left your Father's household. How many of you have been in a situation where you've said, at any cost whatsoever, I am going to make the decision to trust in you and follow you? So Abraham is told to go. But also Abraham answers now what? With now worship. With now worship. Now, this is the same as going, but I'm going to explain to you the differences and the outcome of how this looks. Verses 7 and 8. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, I give you this land to your descendants. So Abram built an altar there to the Lord who appeared to him. From there, he traveled toward the mountains east of Bethel and pitched his tent. There he built another altar to the Lord and worshiped in the Lord's name. Now you need to get this right here. If you are going to live a life of faith, and you are going to develop a heart for worship, you've got to start building altars everywhere. Not just on Sunday mornings, but everywhere in your life has to be an expression of worship before God. My wife and I, a couple weeks ago, got into an argument. First one in 9 years, argument. You believe that? All right, so we get in an argument, and I don't even remember the significance of what it was about. That's how unimportant they usually are for most of us. They're not that important. But I get in the car and I'm riding to the gym to go run, a typical thing on this particular day of the week that I do, and I just had this unsettled feeling inside. So I did something else that I also often do, and I drove up on my mountain, Stonecrest, and went up there and I built an altar. Not physically, I don't even know if I could do that, all right? I built an altar. I started praying. God, what do I need to see? As I step into this next thing, what is it that I need to do? And I can promise you with the uncertainty that's going on in my life right now, with moving to Tennessee in a few months and no plans and no place to live, might I tell you, that I am building altars everywhere. God said, go, go. Okay, I'm scared to death, God, but I'm going. All right, God said to worship, I worship. We need to be building altars everywhere in our lives every single day. So remember our questions right here. Are you willing to go where you might not want to go? Are you willing to do what you might not want to do? And this is what most people are going to say, well, of course I will. Yeah, Matt, you asked me to help you out with this, I'll help you out with this. If the church needs this, I'll do this. That's not exactly what I'm asking. I'm asking about the things in your life that you worship, the things that you care about more than anything. Are you willing to go through the painful expression and experience of turning away from those things, because that's what faith really is? Again, it's not a tweet. It's not a bumper sticker ethic. You've got this fish on the back of your car, this bumper sticker about how much faith you have, but you are living in your comfortable life. It's stepping out and going where you might not want to go. It's doing what you might want to do. It's accepting the fact that life might not turn out. Life, it may not fit your 5-year plan or your 10-year plan. This is what we do in these critical moments when we're asking, now what? So let's translate this into one sentence if we can. Are you willing to put the things that you care about the most on the altar? Are you willing to take the things, your gods, your treasures, the things that you care about the most, and actually put those things on the altar? Some of you are naive enough or maybe arrogant enough to say, Abraham has no idea. He's not seen my portfolio. Abraham has no idea what I was. Abraham put his own son on the altar. Abraham took his own flesh and blood, if we were to read further in Genesis, and put his son on the altar. So don't tell me that Abraham didn't know what he was talking about. Abraham gave everything while we sit back in this middle-class lifestyle enjoying, I wonder what time my show comes on. I wonder what time we're going to do this. And this is the way that we live. So when you feel pain, you worship. When you are stressed, you worship. When you don't know what to do, you worship. When you struggle, you worship. When everything in your life is going wonderful, you worship. A pastor told Beth and I several years back, he said, you know what worship is? He said, we get on Sunday mornings, we sing songs, sometimes we raise our hands. He said, that's not worship. He said, there was a woman that recently came in my office and she was told that she had cancer just a few weeks ago. And whenever she was told that she had cancer, she knelt down in her home and she thanked God for the life that she has had. Right when she gets this diagnosis and recognizes that her life is over, that is what worship means. We must develop a real heart for worship at all times. Are you with me? We hear good. All right. So this is where we want to go with this, all right? This is a question that I want to ask you as we start to wrap up. Where do you go and what do you worship? So whenever you're asking these questions, now what? What am I supposed to do? What's next? Life did not turn out the way that I expected. For a long time, I recognized that I was in control, and now I completely know that control is an illusion. And I have no control over the outcome of my life. Now what am I supposed to do? Where do you go and where do you worship? Because we always go somewhere and we always worship something. All right? Now here's the thing. Don't blame God, as some of you are right now, for your circumstances. Don't blame God if if all you do is worship yourself. Don't blame God if all you do is, whenever you're struggling and whenever you're having a hard time, is you become self-consumed with your issues and your worries. Don't blame God if all you do is worship yourself. So do you really trust? Are you willing to walk through those painful moments and leave your former land behind? Is that an experience that you've had? Do you really trust? So some of you, what do I do next? Now what? The answer is that you must go and you must worship, but you must understand what you're going toward and what you are worshiping. Because in one way or another in your life, God is telling you to go, and go will always involve leaving something behind. Always, because you can't take everything with you. Even if you can take some livestock and stuff like that, can't take everything with you whenever you go. And most of the time, we have to go with nothing but the shirt on our backs. So this go. Step into that calling. Give up that sin. Make that financial sacrifice. Buy that smaller home. Join that small group. Serve in the church. Forgive that person. Whatever this may look like, your go, again, is not my go. Okay, God is not necessarily telling you to move to Tennessee. God is not telling you to move to Africa. Your go is not my go. But you must interpret your go. You must understand your go. And you must come to the altar and say, God, I'm willing to go. What do we understand about Abraham's go? It's where the blessing was. Nation of Israel built around one individual that made the decision to go. What about this worship component? What does it look like? Some of you need to take your money off the altar. Some of you need to take your kids off the altar. Some of you need to stop worshiping that athlete, or worshiping that politician, or worshiping that social media personality, or worshiping your spouse, or whatever that might look like. You must learn to worship. Going back to our original verse, and this is from Hebrews 11, which is kind of considered like the scriptural hall of fame of other verses are about other biblical characters that have practiced faith. By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place where he was going to receive an inheritance. He went without knowing where he was going. You see, if we had the ability to know where we were going and what everything was going to look like, it wouldn't be faith. It'd just be the next step in our lives. It'd just be the next part of our journey that we have complete control over, that we're able to completely take care of all by ourselves. But I can tell you, as an individual that's been on this journey for a little while, and there are other people in this church who have been on this journey much longer than me, that whenever you make the decision to go, and whenever you make the decision to worship, everything changes. You see, you're not worried about that comfort, because that comfort was never really who you were. You are not worried about that ownership, because those things don't matter. And you are not worried about that identity, because that identity was never really fully you. See, fully you is the decision that you start to learn and grow into once you've made the decision to go. Now, God is telling some of you in here right now, in your marriage, in your struggle as a single person, in your relationship with certain people, with a calling on your life. Some of you, as we go through this transition at Destination Community Church, God telling you to go is telling you to step up and do more. Step into a new role. Whatever your go may look like, we're going to open up the altar this morning, and I want to give you an opportunity to come down here and pray. And you want to know the first thing that you need to do as far as go is you need to have the courage to go to the altar. Like, that's where it starts, because your comfort's in that chair. Your ownership's in that chair because you sit there every week. You won't let other people sit there. Your identity is in that chair because you never go to the altar. All right, so maybe that's the first thing that God is telling you to go. So we're going to worship this morning. And if you know that God is nudging you and telling you that you need to go, we're going to invite you to come down this morning.